Good evening and welcome back. What unfolded today in the Pam Bondi Justice Department budget hearing was not just another partisan exchange. It was a stark warning about how power, law enforcement, and constitutional accountability are colliding in Washington right now.
And at the moment, I recognize Senator Van Hollen for his opening statement.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Welcome, Attorney General Bondi. The Department of Justice is supposed to play a vital role in defending our Constitution, upholding the rule of law, and keeping the American people safe. Unfortunately, it's currently failing on all these fronts. And this budget request will make a bad situation even worse. We are witnessing a level of lawlessness from this administration that is unprecedented in scale and scope. Indeed, when asked, President Trump said he didn't know whether he was required to comply with the Constitution of the United States. Instead of defending the rule of law, DOJ attorneys are being deployed to aid and abet in lawbreaking. Like just yesterday, Madam Attorney General, when the administration took, I believe, the unprecedented step of suing all the Maryland Federal District Court judges because of actions they took to protect habeas corpus and the constitutional right of due process. To date, the administration has faced nearly 300 legal challenges in federal courts. There are currently in place a huge number of preliminary injunctions and temporary restraining orders issued by judges appointed by presidents of both parties, including appointed by President Trump. At the same time, patriotic career civil servants have been fired for upholding their constitutional oaths. In January, the then acting Attorney General fired more than a dozen prosecutors simply because they had been assigned to work with Special Counsel Jack Smith. And dozens of others have also been wrongfully terminated. And you picked up where the acting Attorney General left off when you fired the pardon attorney after she declined to restore the gun rights to a close friend of President Trump with a domestic violence conviction. Perhaps most troubling, Madam Attorney General, is you have fired attorneys like the acting Deputy Director of the Office of Immigration Litigation simply for telling the truth in court. As he said yesterday, the whistleblower, in a complaint filed, quote, "I didn't sign up to lie." That sends a terrible message to every DOJ attorney who wants to both do their job and uphold their professional ethics and integrity. While spending taxpayer resources to defend this lawbreaking, the administration has proposed a budget that is a gift to our foreign adversaries, to the drug cartels, and to illegal firearms traffickers. Why do I say that? Let's look at each of those categories. On your first day, you disbanded the FBI Foreign Influence Task Force Office, which was established to combat secret malign influence campaigns by China, Russia, and other adversaries. On that day, you also restricted the scope of criminal charges under the Foreign Agents Registration Act. Your budget cuts the Drug Enforcement Administration and eliminates funding for the organized crime drug enforcement task forces, which coordinate interagency efforts to combat the worst drug trafficking cartels. And you're effectively dismantling efforts to go after illegal gun traffickers by attempting to dissolve the ATF. At the same time, this budget undermines local law enforcement by stripping away funding that's critical to protecting our local schools and reducing violent crime in rural communities. And many organizations that help the victims of crimes are running out of their fiscal year 25 funds because, for example, the Office of Justice Programs has only posted one grant solicitation for 2025. Meanwhile, under the guise of efficiency, your budget proposes to combine and significantly cut the 3 distinct DOJ grant-making agencies, including the Office on Violence Against Women, which you propose to slash by 30%. There is nothing efficient about reducing services to victims of crime. Your budget also indicates that transparency and integrity are not priorities of the Justice Department. Over the last 5 months, you've decimated the public integrity section. Public reports indicate that this office went from 30 attorneys to as few as 5. Your budget would also slash the department's oversight watchdog, the Office of Inspector General, by $42 million. Inspector General Horowitz told me that these cuts would result in the elimination of 140 positions, which would bring investigations to a halt and interfere with the IG's ability to conduct oversight of the department. I would note that it was an OIG investigation that helped uncover the FBI's serious mishandling of allegations of sexual abuse against former USA gymnastics physician Larry Nassar. Why target these key areas of public integrity, oversight, and accountability? So, Attorney General Bondi, I hope you'll answer our questions today. I say that because your department has failed to respond to any of the 9 inquiries I have made and have responded to only 2 of 38 letters sent by my colleagues, the ranking members of the Senate and House Judiciary Committees, Senator Durbin and Congressman Raskin. So, Madam Attorney General, we have much to discuss this morning. I look forward to your testimony.
If you care about the rule of law, civil liberties, or even how taxpayer money is being spent, this is a moment you need to understand. And before we go further, make sure you subscribe to the channel so you do not miss these critical breakdowns of what is really happening behind the headlines. Senator Chris Van Hollen opened his remarks by laying out a foundational principle that often gets lost in political noise. The Department of Justice is not supposed to serve a president. It is supposed to serve the Constitution. Its job is to uphold the rule of law, protect public safety, and ensure that no one, including the president, is above the law. Van Hollen argued that under Attorney General Pam Bondi, the department is failing on all 3 fronts, and he did not mince words. Instead of defending constitutional norms, Van Hollen argued that DOJ attorneys are now being used to justify and defend actions that courts are repeatedly finding unlawful. Nearly 300 legal challenges have already been filed against the administration, resulting in a wave of injunctions and restraining orders issued by judges appointed by both Republicans and Democrats, including judges appointed by Trump himself. Habeas corpus is not a technicality. It is one of the oldest legal protections in American law, preventing the government from detaining people without justification. When a Justice Department attacks judges for enforcing it, that raises profound constitutional concerns. And if you are finding this analysis helpful so far, take a moment to subscribe. These are not stories you will always get explained clearly elsewhere. Van Hollen then turned to what he described as a purge within the Justice Department itself. Career civil servants, people who swore an oath to the Constitution rather than any president, have been fired for doing their jobs. More than a dozen prosecutors were dismissed simply because they had worked on cases connected to Special Counsel Jack Smith. Others were terminated for refusing to bend ethical rules. One case stood out. The pardon attorney was fired after declining to restore gun rights to a close friend of President Trump who had a domestic violence conviction. That decision, according to Van Hollen, was not about law or policy. It was about loyalty. Even more troubling was the firing of a senior immigration litigation official who refused to lie in court. His words, "I did not sign up to lie," now stand as a chilling warning to every DOJ attorney still on the job. This is where the hearing moved beyond politics and into something deeply human. Lawyers are being told that telling the truth may cost them their careers. That changes how justice functions at its core. And again, if you want continued coverage that explains these moments in plain language, make sure you subscribe. The senator then shifted to the budget itself, arguing that it actively weakens national security and public safety. On Bondi's first day, the FBI's Foreign Influence Task Force was disbanded, the Drug Enforcement Administration is facing cuts, and funding for organized crime drug enforcement task forces is being eliminated. These task forces coordinate federal, state, and local agencies to dismantle major drug cartels. Removing them does not just save money, it creates gaps that criminal networks exploit. Efforts to combat illegal gun trafficking are also being weakened through attempts to dissolve the ATF. Meanwhile, grants that support local law enforcement, school safety, and rural crime prevention are being stripped away. Victims of crime are already feeling the impact, with organizations running out of funding because critical grants for fiscal year 2025 have barely been issued. If this kind of deep dive matters to you, subscribe now so you stay informed. Finally, Van Hollen highlighted cuts that strike at transparency itself. The public integrity section, responsible for prosecuting corruption, has reportedly shrunk from about 30 attorneys to as few as 5. The Office of Inspector General, the department's internal watchdog, would lose $42 million. Inspector General Horowitz warned that these cuts would eliminate 140 positions and effectively halt investigations. This matters because it was an Inspector General investigation that exposed the FBI's mishandling of sexual abuse allegations against former USA gymnastics doctor Larry Nassar. Oversight is not abstract. It is how abuse of power gets exposed. The question Van Hollen left hanging was simple and devastating. Why target the very offices responsible for integrity, oversight, and accountability?